Margaret had walked the same path in Riverside Park every morning for 3 years. Same time, same route, same bench where she'd rest halfway through. But one Tuesday morning in October, something was different. A young man sat on her bench, head in his hands, looking like he'd lost everything. Margaret almost walked past. Almost. What happened next would change both their lives. Margaret Jensen was 72 years old and lived alone in a small house in Portland, Oregon. Her husband Frank had passed away 3 years ago, and since then, her daily walk had become her routine. Her anchor. Every morning at 7:30 a.m., she'd walk the 2-mile loop around Riverside Park. Rain or shine, she knew every tree, every turn, every person who walked their dogs at that hour. The park was her place of peace. A place where she could think about Frank, remember their 47 years together, and somehow feel less alone. Margaret wasn't the type to talk to strangers. She'd give a polite nod, maybe a small smile, but that was it. Portland was friendly, but she kept to herself. That's just how she was. On that October morning, the leaves were turning gold and orange. The air was crisp. Everything felt normal as Margaret started her walk. Until she reached the halfway point. Her bench, the one she sat on every single day to catch her breath and watch the river, was occupied. A man in his early 30s sat there, hunched over, face buried in his hands. His shoulders shook slightly. He didn't notice her approaching. Margaret paused. She could walk past, find another bench. That would be the easy thing to do. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way his hands trembled. Maybe it was the memory of the days after Frank died, when she felt just as lost. Maybe it was simply that this was her bench, and 3 years of routine had made her brave. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Mind if I sit?" The man looked up, startled. His eyes were red. He quickly wiped his face with his sleeve. "Oh, sorry. I'll move." "No need," Margaret said, sitting down on the other end of the bench. "It's a public bench. There's room for two." They sat in silence for a moment. Margaret looked out at the river, giving him space. She didn't ask questions, didn't pry, just sat there, like she did every morning. After a few minutes, the man spoke. "I'm sorry. I'm kind of a mess right now." "We all are sometimes," Margaret replied simply. More silence. Then, "I lost my job 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, my girlfriend left. This morning, I got an eviction notice." His voice cracked. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore." Margaret nodded slowly. "That's a lot all at once. I came here because I didn't know where else to go." He let out a bitter laugh. Sitting in a park at 7:30 in the morning, like someone who needed a quiet place to think, Margaret finished gently. "Nothing wrong with that." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a granola bar, one of two she always carried on her walks. "Here, you look like you could use this." The man stared at it, then at her. "I can't. It's just a granola bar," she said. "And I have two." He took it. His hands were still shaking. They sat together for 20 minutes. Margaret didn't offer advice or try to fix anything. She just sat there, sharing the bench, sharing the morning. Before she left to continue her walk, she said, "I'm here every morning. Same time. If you need a quiet place, this bench will be here too." The next morning, he was there again. Sitting on the same bench. This time, he looked up when she arrived and gave a small nod. Margaret sat down. They didn't talk much, but they shared the bench. This happened again and again. Some mornings they talked. Some mornings they didn't. Margaret learned his name was David. He'd worked in tech. He was trying to figure out his next steps. Margaret told him about Frank. About how lost she'd felt. About how this park had become her lifeline. Some days, just getting out of bed and walking this loop is the only thing that makes sense, she admitted. David nodded. I get that now. 3 weeks passed. Then one morning, David wasn't there. Margaret felt a strange pang of worry. She'd gotten used to their quiet mornings together. She sat on the bench alone, wondering if something had happened. The next morning, he wasn't there either. On the third day, Margaret found an envelope tucked under a rock on the bench. Her name was written on it in careful handwriting. Inside was a letter. Dear Margaret, I wanted to let you know I got a job. It's in Seattle, so I'm moving this week. I almost didn't tell you because I'm not good at goodbyes. But I needed you to know something. You saved my life. That morning when you sat down next to me, I'd been sitting on that bench for 2 hours trying to figure out if anything mattered anymore. I was in a very dark place. You didn't know that. You just offered me a granola bar and a place to sit. Every morning after that, knowing someone would be there, someone who didn't judge, didn't push, just sat with me, gave me a reason to show up. And showing up every day eventually led to getting up. And getting up led to trying again. You taught me that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness are the ones that matter most. That sharing a bench can save someone. I'll never forget our mornings together. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Your friend, David. P.S. I left you something. Margaret looked down. Next to the rock was a small package. Inside 2 granola bars and a note, for the next person who needs a bench. Margaret still walks the same path every morning. Same time, same route, same bench. But now she always carries extra granola bars. And she always makes room on the bench. Because sometimes the most important thing we can do is show up. Sit down. And remind someone they're not alone. We never know whose life we might change with one simple act of kindness.